Hi, and welcome back to this video series on the Common Rule, Habits of Purpose for an Age of Distraction. Common Rule is a book about 8 daily and weekly habits designed to form us in the love of God and neighbor. And this video series is a guide to reading the book, discussing the concepts with the community, and most importantly, practicing the habits together. So today, we're going to be talking about the first daily habit, which is kneeling prayer at morning, noon, and evening. And what we're going to find in this habit is that habits always frame our day. Most of them, however, are unnoticed. So often, without even knowing it, we frame our day in habits of anxiety or envy, consumerism or injustice, vanity or rush or busyness. And in the habit of kneeling prayer, we're going to think about how can we reframe our day by punctuating it with these moments where we kneel and pray and look towards the love of God and neighbor. When I was young, I remember my mom planting a jasmine plant in the flower bed next to our brick garage. And I remember she built this little wooden trellis behind it because apparently this kind of Carolina jasmine, if not guided, will just grow outward and overtake everything else in the flower bed and even kill the plants beside it. And so on this trellis she built, the jasmine started growing upwards and then onto this brick. And my memory of childhood was this beautiful spreading jasmine plant that covered the whole brick wall, blossomed into all these yellow flowers in the spring. And I remember the fragrance would just overtake the whole place when you walked outside. I start with this because the metaphor of the trellis is actually an ancient way of understanding the power of small habits. So monasteries and other spiritual communities for years, centuries, have adopted something called a rule of life. Now, a rule of life is essentially a common schedule of habits for the spiritual community. But the word rule here, and this is really important, is not like a law you can't break. The word comes from the Latin root regula, a word which is associated with a bar or a trellis. It's the woodwork on which a plant grows. And the idea is that through communal habits, we build a trellis on which love can grow. So this is the whole idea of kneeling prayer. The goal is not to check off some prayers every day or suggest that the entirety of your prayer life should be these morning, noon, and night prayers. No, the idea is that you punctuate otherwise chaotic and crazy days with moments of submission, you're kneeling, and slowness, you're stopping to pray, and dependence, because you're asking the creator of the universe to take control of what you can't. So my day, for example, is often punctuated by this waking moment of anxiety. Oh my gosh, I'm tired, I'm late, I need to hurry. And then a midday moment of, wow, there's so much more that I wanted to do today that's not going to happen, and I feel like a failure. And then maybe an evening moment of confusion where I wonder if any of this actually matters at all. And when these are the moments that define my day, it's not really surprising that I end up feeling like an anxious, confused failure. So for me, the short patterns of inserting prayers into these moments means that I deliberately ignore these counter narratives of who I am and who God is. And I say to them, you do not define reality. Actually, a God who loves me and is guiding this day does. And in that moment of kneeling prayer, we're doing something to our brains by pausing, to our bodies by kneeling, and of course to our souls by acknowledging God and His love, that this is the dominant fact of the turn in the day. So the way I'd recommend experimenting with this habit is write out some short prayers. I suggest some in the book. You can use those, or if your church has a book of common prayer, use that. Whatever it is, write them down and just try it. First thing when you wake, kneel beside the bed and meet God in that brief moment of prayer. And then midday, right when you feel that turn in the day, that urge to drink another cup of coffee you don't need or scroll the internet for something you know you're going to regret, kneel and pray. Reclaim that moment. And then finally, right before bed, do it one more time. And you know it's going to be awkward and weird, but all new habits are like that. What's amazing is that after you start doing this for a couple days, and then a couple weeks, and suddenly you look up one day and you realize that you actually pray now. You actually do it, and regularly. And these little prayers have become a trellis. And all kinds of love for God and neighbor are starting to grow on them. So that's the idea behind the habit of kneeling prayer at morning, midday, and evening. Now let me give you your fact to ponder, your question to discuss, and your habit to practice. Fact to ponder. Recent Duke University study showed that almost 40% of our daily actions aren't really conscious choices, they're habits. So think about how much of your life is actually occurring in this realm, because those are the things we're thinking about. Now here's your question to discuss. We talked about what frames your day. I want you to share in your group what kind of habits right now, for better or worse, are framing your day. Your habit to practice this week is going to be trying kneeling prayer. So write down a short prayer or use the one in the book, and morning, noon, and evening, come back, kneel, and pray, and see what God does. Now, over the course of the next week, you're going to be reading chapter 2 about the second daily habit of one meal a day with others. And when you come back, we'll be talking about that. In the meantime, remember, your habits will never change God's love for you, but God's love for you can and should change your habits.